Okay, today is the 31st of January 2023, and we'll talk about two architects, E. Faye Jones and Filippo Juvara. We begin with E. Faye Jones, born in 1921 and died in 2004. We'll read a little bit about him. So I can't pronounce very well his first name, so it's better just the initial, E. Faye Jones, born on January 31st, 1921. So 100 years ago, 101 years ago, no, 102 years ago, was an American architect and designer, an apprentice of Frank Lloyd Wright. During his professional career, Jones was the only one of Wright's disciples to have received the AIA Gold Medal in 1990, the highest honor awarded by the American Institute of Architects. He also achieved international preeminence as an architectural educator during his 35 years of teaching at the University of Arkansas School of Architecture. His Thornecrown Chapel was added to the National Register of Historic Places in the year 2000, only 20 years after it was built, in recognition of its architectural significance. It also received a 25-year award from the American Institute of Architects and other professional recognition. This was the man, a modest man, but he built some interesting buildings, and it is a pleasure, an honor, and even a duty to talk about his works. I think this chapel is indeed remarkable, but it's not the only building he built. I think I read, if I remember well, that well, he had a good relationship with Frank Lloyd Wright, and I forgot exactly. Maybe I should not address this aspect because I am a little bit confused. I better not attempt now to quote wrongly something that I remember reading, but not sufficiently verified. Anyway, E. Faye Jones, some drawings by him. 1961, this was a butterfly house, which he built by, sorry, I did want to show some drawings and I couldn't find them. So please forget this, this word. We'll jump into his built work, 1961. This house, also called the Butterfly House, Fayetteville in Arkansas, clearly with some influence from Frank Lloyd Wright, but also with some original elements. Like in the case of Frank Lloyd Wright, the chimney, the hearth, is right there in the center of the house. Maybe here too explicitly, but it's still a convincing building. And here also we see echoes from Wright, even from his church design. But I like what I see. There is a coherent expression here in terms of this triangular growth towards the sky. It doesn't seem to be superficial or forced or artificial. No. And this entrance also, at 45 degrees, with also kind of unusual, but creates a dynamic entrance into the building. Because of this rotation, I hope I have the plan here of the house. No, he was quite an architect himself, E. F. Faye Jones. Another house, 1962. I like the drama of the roof. You know, this is indeed an architecture that springs from the earth, as Frank Lloyd Wright advocated. And but the roof, in the case of E. Faye Jones, is maybe even more dramatic, like in this case, than in some of the works of Frank Lloyd Wright. Another house. This one also is I would say very nice, and in its verticality and narrowness. These are good works. And look at the unusualness of its stone walls. Frank Lloyd Wright also used stones, even at the Falling Water, where he placed big stones even in the living room, just like E.F. Faye Jones does in this house. All the amenities of modernity and comfort. Another house, 1964. I like the resoluteness of the roof, you know, this sloping plane that creates the diagonal of man in a way. You know, this floor, this roof that has power because of its dimensions and its clarity of conception and expression. Some echoes from Oriental art. Now, what is this? Another house, 1965, very close to the earth, indeed. Frank Lloyd Wright also, I imagine that E. Faye Jones was a taller architect than Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright was not a very tall man. In fact, once I made a presentation on Frank Lloyd Wright when I was in the United States, and I began with I found a picture of him on top of a hill, scrutinizing the infinite or the horizon, and I amplified the picture with his shoes. He had shoes with big heels, not like a woman, but very close. I guess he was trying to compensate his, not very tall stature with those shoes. I was talking about Frank Lloyd Wright, but I imagine E. Faye Jones, from the pictures I saw of him, that he was taller. Anyway, but his buildings are very close to the earth. 1976, another house. This is nice too. It could have been almost a chapel, and in fact, that celebrated chapel is architecturally not very different, really, in terms of its expression. I mean, if you remove the furniture, that is the Kandinsky chair designed by Marcel Breuer that we see here in the foreground, and all the other things, the domestic things, it could be a chapel. Can you imagine having such a living room? Not bad. E. Faye Jones. Another house, 1981. I like this one too. Clearly modern, but not with that obsessive terrace flat roof. Here, the roof is, nicely getting rid of the rainwater and the snow, and also it helps with its expression, the sculpturalness of the house. Now we arrive at his best known work, and the one that is highly appreciated and honored, the Thornecrown Chapel. Thorn crown, that's the crown with thorns that Jesus had, thanks to those who offered it to him. I'm sarcastic, of course. So constructed using over 6,000 square feet of glass, the church has 425 windows. Incredible. The chapel is fourth in AIA's list of top buildings of the 20th century. So again, this chapel is on the fourth position of the American Institute of Architects list of top buildings of the 20th century. That's not easy to arrive on that position because, you know, there are so many brilliant buildings built in the 20th century. It has received a special 25-year award of excellence from AIA, the American Institute of Architects, or Architecture, amongst many other awards. Located in Arkansas, Eureka Springs, the chapel was constructed in 1980 with a resemblance to Gothic cathedrals due to its verticality. The chapel peacefully rests among the trees and appears to have grown from the site in the Ozarks. I guess that's the name of the place it is in. The drawing is very similar to the drawings of Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright had a peculiarity. He was, and I see E. Faye Jones does the same, is limiting the sky. There is somehow more space at the bottom. The earth is extending all the way to the limit of the paper, left, right, and bottom. But the sky, the infinity of the sky is limited, as you can see with this perimeter line. And Frank Lloyd Wright did the same. It's a box in a way, but it's the opposite of a box in terms of how it was built, because he found the right proportions, the right materials, and indeed the forest, the trees are almost part of the building. Although the building is very, you know, very architectural, very man-made, as you can see. There is geometry, a clear-cut geometry. There is a module, there is repetition, the structure is coherent, but it has a sensitivity which doesn't make it at all a building that dwells on rigidity and so on. It is an excellent building. No wonder it was so celebrated and awarded, because here somehow E. Faye Jones managed to create a balance between nature and man, between culture and architecture, and no, between architecture and nature. And this is not easy, or between culture and nature is not easy. He did it. With this building, I don't think E. Faye Jones is stating what Winnie Maas, for example, the chief designer of MVRDV, said, that, you know, to outsmart nature. What a foolish statement. You cannot outsmart nature, and second, what's the point, really? I mean, why would you want to outsmart something that you are yourself part of, and you even have nature within? Not to speak about the fact that Frank Lloyd Wright, when he was asked, do you believe in God? He said, I do, but I spell it nature. So by saying outsmarting nature is like saying outsmarting God. Not even Winnie Maas, I think, would succeed in doing that, with all due respect. Anyway, an excellent building in the forest by this interesting architect, E. Faye Jones. None of the chapels that Peter Zumthor built can compare with this, with all due respect. Now, I don't know about the color of the fabric here, that blue. I don't know, but I see he uses the blue also vertically on that on these details. Nice. Indeed, looking at this building and experiencing it, I think you might agree with Frank Lloyd Wright that maybe nature can be spelled God. Now, another house from 1961, no pictures, another chapel. This chapel was constructed in 1988 in Bella Vista, Arkansas, Jones' second major project for a chapel. So this is a different chapel from the one we just saw. It has a similar Gothic character as the Thornecrown Chapel, owing to its verticality and progression of frames. Larger than the Thornecrown Chapel, Cooper Chapel measures 24 feet wide by 84 feet long and rises 54 feet to its skylighted peak, protected by a wooded hill and overlooking a lake. The wood and steel framed arch structure resting on a low stone foundation welcomes the visitor. The entrance to the chapel is framed by a tall pointed arch opening. With flagstone flooring and pointed arch oak doors, the chapel has a rectangular plan with glass walls that enclose ductwork for heating, the cooling system held in place between steel and wood columns set at 6-foot intervals. 6 feet is like 1 meter and 80 centimeters. The round unglazed window just above the point of the arch is symbolic of the Gothic rose window. The customized foot lamps along the hillside pathway leading to the chapel were designed by Faye Jones himself. And this is the building, another chapel, a little different from the previous one. But this one, well, here, maybe the historical reference is it's more explicit. I mean, without maybe, yes, it is more explicit. Architecture also at that time was entering its, well, no, it was already in the midst of postmodernism, and maybe this says something about this building, but it's not bad, and it's not. I think the Gothic or Gothicist reference is not fussy, you know, it's not superficial. I still have my own you know, subjectivity vis-a-vis the seating. You know, here he doesn't use blue, it's some kind of something whitish, maybe it's even some kind of a plastic, which I think could be a little bit you know, maybe questioned, but without a direct experience of the building, I can't truly say. But the building is not bad. Now, pavilion, fine coat pavilion. This one also, you know, is yes, it's in the same realm of architectonic expression as the chapel that we saw, but it's good. And this is a model, I think, yes, or maybe not. his own house in Arkansas. You can tell that he studied with Frank Lloyd Wright. But he still has his own personality and his own originality. So he didn't remain trapped in the shadow of the great master. The house, I think, was maybe after his death, his daughter, if I remember correctly, or they sold it or something. You can see that it's not inhabited. His daughter or his daughters sold it or something. I forgot. But it's still a good building, I would say. I'm not sure about the wood that he employed. It looks like this, pressed wood, industrially produced, and I don't think it doesn't go well with the stones and on the floor and the walls and so on. Yeah, I would not have used such sleek, industrially produced wood. But outside is fine. I wonder why he didn't use the same thing inside. I mean, obviously he was not very timid when he allowed for stones and bricks to be used inside, but this in a way fake wood alarms me and disappoints me. A nice lamp, perhaps. Okay, that was it. And now I will talk about the third architect today, and that is Filippo Juvara, who is also connected with the day of the 31st of January. A very important architect himself, Filippo Juvara. This was the man with a funny little finger there, with a little, jewel there, a little ring. A successful architect. He died on the day of the 31st of January. So as opposed to Faye Jones, who was born on the 31st of January, Filippo Juvara died in 1736. Was an Italian architect active in a late Baroque style, who worked primarily in Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Juvara was born in Messina, Sicily, to a family of goldsmiths and engravers. After spending his formative years with his family in Sicily, where he designed Messina's festive settings for the coronation of Philip V of Spain and Sicily, Juvara moved to Rome in 1704. There he studied architecture with Carlo and Francesco Fontana. So he was born in Sicily, and he built an incredible little church in Messina. We are going to see it. Some drawings. He did stage design for the theater. Plenty of such studies, and I imagine he even built some of them. He was very skillful in the field of stage design. Filippo Juvara. So born in Sicily, but then he worked in Spain, in Italy, and in Portugal. I know he had a significant presence in Spain. He drew a lot, and he drew beautifully. I'm not too sure about the trees. It's almost as if someone else did them. I just don't believe it that they were done by Juvara. Maybe someone else did them. I hope so, but they were probably drawn by him. Anyway, maybe just a sketch, at least at the level of the vegetation, the trees. It's not very common to have architects and artists at that time draw trees in that way, kind of in a hurry, schematically, and almost, anyway, I better stop about this, but I was disappointed. Before I didn't notice them, those trees, but now I did. Plenty of drawings. Filippo Juvara. Basilica of Superga, 1731, so almost 300 years ago. One of Juvara's masterworks, the Basilica Church of Superga, was built in 1731 and rises at the top of a mountain overlooking the city of Turin. It was part picturesque monument and part royal mausoleum for the family of Savoy. Reputedly, the site was chosen because of a vow taken here by the then Duke and future King Victor Amadeus II of Savoy, as he surveyed the field of operations while defending the city from the besieging French armies during the Battle of Turin. Because yes, construction was arduous. It's on top of a mountain, and took over 14 years, including 2 years to flatten the mountaintop, and at incredible cost and effort to bring the stones and supplies to the peak. Behind the church was a monastery. The classical portico is appended to a centralized church with a highly vertical 75-meter Baroque dome. The later creates a mountain atop a mountain effect, something that Frank Lloyd Wright, for example, totally discouraged, to build something on top of a mountain. But that's exactly what Filippo Juvara did. But it's not a skyscraper. Anyway, this is the building. And indeed, think about it, bringing the construction materials all the way to the top of the mountain. An impressive building, but with an almost shocking placement. Well, I think I have a picture with the building seen from afar, from the outside. You see here, you don't quite realize, the height at which this building was built, and it's a big building. This is not a hut. It's a huge building that would have deserved probably to be built in Rome or in a city or in Turin itself. Filippo Juvara, La Basilica. It's not just the church itself, but also the many rooms. There is a monastery there. There are many rooms for the monks and so on. I mean, again, at that time they didn't have vehicles and so on to transport the materials, rather in an easy way. I'm sure it was extremely difficult to bring from the city of Turin or from who knows where the materials on top of the mountain to build this very large building. They did it. Filippo Juvara. I mean, if he would have built only this dome all his life, and he would have died without too many regrets that he didn't do anything in this life. But he did many other things. great mysterious shadow there on the dome and the wall supporting it. Santa Cristina, the facade in Turin, Torino, a great facade. And I don't know if he built, I think he built the one on the left, and I don't know if he also built the one on the right, which attempted to be identical. The one that he built is the one on the left. How is it called? Santa Cristina. Nice name. In Turin. Some great architecture in Torino, in Turin. With its own brand of Baroque architecture. And of course, Guarini comes to mind. The genius of Guarini. But Juvara himself is not an architect to be ignored. Filippo Juvara. Sculptures that we don't use these days any longer to adorn our buildings. We don't believe in that, I guess. Too bad. Palazzo Madama, the facade, a big building. Paris. What can we say? He did more than just the facade. He did it's a sandwich space, so to speak, which contains the staircases. We are going to see a picture from the inside as well. It's actually this part. It's more than just a facade. It's actually this portion of the building which has a depth. That's what I'm saying. It's not just a front wall, but also the space behind it with circulation, with the stairs. It's nice. Essentially, he built a building, a narrow building in front of the existing one. Filippo Juvara. Stone. These people built for eternity. They wouldn't use the materials we use today. No. Plus, they didn't have them. Palace of Venaria. I don't know where it is. Long spaces. A huge building behind it. Here I'm confused, and I remember from the previous presentation I made, I'm not sure what part of this large complex of buildings he took part in. This space, yes, was designed by him, but I also found images with his name relating to this building. So I guess he worked on various parts of this large complex of buildings. A castle with the same people, Castle of Rivoli. Here there are some ruins, as you can see, but the ruins can be beautiful. Also with some modern interventions, which I like them too. I guess that's how it looked like before it became partially a ruin. Filippo Juvara, but here he worked with a group of other architects. And I like these insertions of the new, of course they don't belong to him, taking care of the old building and also adding something that was, clearly expressing our time. This makes me think a little bit of some interventions in all the context by Giorgio Grassi, an interesting Italian architect whom is very appreciated by Kenneth Frampton. Now, the Church of San Filippo Neri, also in Turin, a great church with a dramatic interior. I don't like the front elevation, neoclassical as it seems to be, but the interior is majestic. Because I don't quite understand, you know, the interior is like Baroque and the front elevation is neoclassical. Church of Santa Croce in Turin. This is a nice church. It's simple, but it has the ellipse or ellipsoid, the ellipse in plan of the dome, and it's I think well made. A little church. I mean, a small, much smaller building, but it has quality. And you know, the dome is brilliant. If it was a cylinder, it would have been easier, but it's an ellipse. I hope I have the plan here. I think it was damaged by, if I'm not mistaken, by war, by the Second World War. Yes. But the Italians rebuilt it. Good. It deserves to be rebuilt. A castle, another work done with other architects. A minimalist room, of course not. I was joking. Minimalist baldachin, of course not. I'm joking again. I think these people would not have understood minimalism. They would not have understood how we could build in such a way. But times changed. Only Donald Trump would enjoy such an interior these days in his Trump Tower in New York. Yeah, I'm absolutely sure Donald Trump would have loved to have such a living room or who knows what kind of other space in his mansion. In fact, he even proposed, you know, if he would have been elected again, he would have tortured you know, the architects in the United States to build a so-called beautiful architecture. For him, beauty was mimicking a past with which we don't have a lot in common. But that was his idea of the beautiful. Another church in Torino, Chiesa Madonna del Carmine. And this one makes me think a little bit of Palladio because of its whiteness, but Palladio is not Baroque. Here is a Baroque architecture, also in Turin, and indeed the Turin has a very valuable Baroque architecture, not just Juvara, but also Guarino Guarini, who was one of the great architects that Italy produced. And there are even modern architects, very interesting, emerging from Torino. As you can see, this one was also damaged by war, and we still wage wars, learning nothing. It's incredible. I mean, I don't understand how people can still wage wars in our time when we know what the war means. It's a huge palace, Palazzina di Caccia di Stupinici. Anyway, look at this. You know, riches for the rich and powerful. Incredible. And this is a palace for someone. It's huge and it's splendid, irritatingly splendid, if I can put it this way. Maybe even the clouds are jealous and they plan something evilish, you know, a heavy rain on the beautiful palace. This could have been built also in the Austro-Hungarian Empire in Austria, of course. Filippo Juvara, playing also with angles here, as we can see, and lots of art, decoration, ornament, and so on. It must have been very pleasant to live there, no doubt. And look at the building from the sky. We only saw images from here, but all kinds of interesting things are still present in other parts of this large residence, large palace. Royal Palace, another one. God, this man built a lot. I don't know where this is though. Filippo Juvara. I'm rushing to arrive at that beautiful small church in Messina where he was born, which I truly like, and which is almost has something as if it was inspired by Eastern Orthodoxy. Interesting, very interesting church. This one, I was talking about it and we arrived at it, the Church of San Gregorio in Messina. An old postcard, I guess, with the building, and very, very, very interesting building, really. Maybe even Borromini would have liked it. Because Santivo alla Sapienza in Rome, Borromini experimented himself with this kind of spire, you know, a spire with a spiral. But this building is really unique in the body of work of Filippo Juvara. Maybe he was investing something from within because it was his hometown, Messina. And you'll see images. This one also, I think, was affected by war. But look at the interior. This is not the typical interior of a church that was not, you know, connected in some way with Eastern Orthodoxy. I almost see here the interior of a you know, Christian Orthodox church, an Eastern kind of church with its horror vacui, you know, all walls covered in, you know, with I mean, everything is covered. This church deserves a presentation just about itself, I think. I have to know more about it. This building could have been even in Russia, sorry for saying it, but I'm surprised that they built such a church in the 18th century in Messina, in Sicily. And I end the presentation showing, you you know, some books published about Filippo Juvara, an important architect and stage designer. No, I still show the Quartieri Militari. It's a military quarter or zone in Turin. Interesting identical buildings left and right. I think they have galleries now, you know, cultural institutions and so on. They are not used by the army any longer. A perfectly symmetrical situation. I like the old picture of these two buildings where there are no cars to be seen. So we are again in Turin, in Torino, and these are the works of Filippo Juvara. At the bottom, a contemporary picture, at the top, an older picture. Who knows, maybe the 18th century. Some sketches about the a sketch by the architect. That's it. So he died on the 31st of January, and that's why we talked about him. And Faye Jones was born on the 31st of January, and that's why we talked about him as well. So thank you for being here today.